Hi, you're watching a special recording on the start line of World Marketing Summit Malaysia 2013. And World Marketing Summit Malaysia 2013 looks at the 8 MDG initiative, Millennium Development Goals. This time, looking at it from the eyes and world of marketing and how best that can be used to do good. We know that marketing used to be only associated a lot with the commercial side and the enterprises, but now we look at social, community, alleviating poverty, creating equal partnership with the female folk, not just the male side of things. However, today I'm very proud because I have the ability to link all that to cars, especially one specific brand, which is Volkswagen, and I have the right person here to talk about it because I have Mr. Dr. Zeno Kirschbaumer, the Managing Director for Volkswagen Malaysia. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you.
I'm going to sum up a bit of your presentation because at the end, it was about the video that say if you make things fun, people will come and participate. But before we get to that in the end, maybe just to put things into perspective, because always when you talk about sustainability, it's not just the big picture, but even a bigger picture. So if I look at statistics, Doctor, the automotive firms worldwide will be rolling out about 80 million vehicles in this year alone. So that's a big amount, and automotive industry is one of the biggest industry around in the world. So how do you look at sustainability and the efforts of MDGs, for example, when it comes to the automotive part? Because people are not just looking at emission coming out of vehicles, but also the resources put to build just one vehicle, one car, for example. So it's a big task, but I know Volkswagen this year alone and last year has gotten a lot of awards. The Dow Jones Index on green and sustainability, for example, we look at that. And other companies dropping out, but Volkswagen getting more and more in. And if I look at your TSI, for example, it's a very, very innovative concept. But give us the soul of Volkswagen in terms of sustainability. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, thank you so much. Of course, we are very proud of all the awards and recognitions we get around the world of our sustainability initiatives. But we are much more proud if we get to reach our own set targets.
Okay.
And we set very challenging targets for our own, own company. For instance, just to mention one, we want to further reduce by 25% the carbon footprint of our production units around the world by 2020. So this is challenging targets, but we are, we are convinced that together we can make it. And here I am. I mean, you are fully right in saying it's not just about, the pollution by the emission of the car you are driving, but you have to look at the whole value chain. And so we do. And we do it not just on papers, but we do it in reality. Sustainability, to a certain extent, is part of our DNA, the DNA of our company. So just to give you a few examples. Yes. For instance, in our factory in Chattanooga in the US, yes, we take care about every single drop of rain which comes from the sky. Yes. We utilize it, for the flushing of the toilets, for instance. Next to that factory, we just inaugurated a solar park, the largest, by the way, in the automotive industry worldwide. And this solar park provides, very renewable energy to the factory. And already at this point in time, 1/8 of the power demand of that factory is on renewables. So a very outstanding value, I think. Of course, I can mention many more examples. Yeah.
But the internal combustion engine,
yes,
there's a lot of debate about that now. A lot of Generation Y, for example, they want the power, they want the high-tech comfort of a modern car, but they don't want the hassles of looking at an electrical car and not being able to match the performance of an internal combustion engine. So what's the philosophy of Volkswagen when it comes to the newer generation, the newer responsibility, and producing a product that can marry all this?
Right. I think we have the answers already today. because our TSI technology as well as our TDI technology are very fuel efficient. So today a Golf 1.4 TSI has a fuel consumption of 5 liters per 100 kilometer, or in other terms covers 20 kilometers with each liter, which is an outstanding value. But where we talk especially to these young generations is, look, driver, you can give a further contribution to that. So we encourage drivers to slightly change their behavior in their driving attitude, and the results are exceptional. So you can increase your fuel efficiency by up to 20, let's say 17 to 20% by changing your driving behavior. And this is where we feel also responsible for. So it's not just about the technology we can provide to the market, latest technology, fuel efficient technology, without compromising, as you are saying, on the fun to drive, because we all want to have fun to drive as well. But at the same time, we are saying we are providing all the means for the consumer to do her or his contribution too. So in all our dealerships, not just in Malaysia but around the world, you find a very simple leaflet with 8 recommendations on how to change your driving behavior. So these are small initiatives, but I think they are very, very important.
More and more, and especially for cars, especially in this side of the world, a price of a car nice enough that fulfill our wants might be the same as a house, for example.
Yes.
So it's a relationship with the customers. It's not just a product that we buy and that's it.
That's right.
Some would swear by the same brand until they are old. So how do you look? You mentioned educating the drivers, for example. But if we can go more toward how that philosophy is ingrained. For example, when I look at the TSI philosophy, you look at the TDI, and then you look at the fuel stratified injection engines. Can you, for a layman like me, make that into a plain language of how that technology has been combined to maybe make smaller cars? Maybe a 1.4 now using that technology delivers what 1.6 delivers before.
Yeah, that was actually, it's not me saying, but it's a journalist, the general public saying, that was actually a breakthrough in the automotive industry. When 10 years ago Volkswagen brought the TSI into the marketplace, we call it the downsizing of the engine capacity. So the engine capacity from then on was not anymore, a kind of important factor when choosing a car, and a kind of important factor when getting all the fun to drive. With today, with a 1.4, but even with a 1.2 liter engine TSI, you get the whole torque, and it's not anymore about horsepower, but it's more about the torque, and I think you know what I'm talking about. So from the very beginning you feel the power, although maybe the power in terms of absolute numbers is not the highest, but you feel the power right from the beginning. And at the same time, the downsizing and the TSI technology gives the big advantage to the customer that the fuel consumption is a very low one.
I have to go for the first commercial break, but once we are back, we heard the keynote speaker for your session, Professor Hubert Gazen, talking about, if you, for the cars in 10, 15, 20 years, you need to educate the human capital side today. So how does Volkswagen look at human resource and human capital moving forward? I even have a cousin studying mechatronics in Germany, and he only came back right after PhD, finishing everything and going to the industry at the same time. But for a lot of other markets, and the Asian market is growing very fast. So how do you look at, if you look at Germany, it's a no-brainer. It's very, I even went to, when I went to Linda, we were brought on a tour, and each state were promising that, they have this prepared for the future and everything else. But for countries in Asia, how do you marry the need for talent, training the talent, and the needs of the future? That we'll ask Doctor after this short break. Thank you for still watching a special recorded on the sideline of World Marketing Summit Malaysia 2013. I'm still here with the good doctor from Volkswagen, and human capital moving forward is very important. And we're talking about knowledge economy. Everything has to have knowledge ingrained. And now sustainability is said to be the must-have DNA in any education process, formal or informal. So how does Volkswagen play a role in this? Because I think in order to create a very sustainable future for the automotive industry, all levels of human capital must be already having that.
Definitely. I mean, human capital, that's the most important capital, actually, a most important asset for every corporation, and especially in our field where R&D is all about. I mean, without R&D, without our engineers continuously thinking 10, 20 years ahead, we would not exist anymore. So this is very challenging. It's very challenging, but it has been proven over the last 70 years that Volkswagen is always capable to bring new technologies to the market. So there is a system behind, which is, first of all, a very, very intense interaction with the universities in Germany. Secondly, we rely, as the whole German industry, we rely much on, and we firmly believe in the vocational training. Okay, so just, you know, the simple staying in a school class is not enough nowadays. You have to bring the people, and the youngsters, they want to go where the product is, they want to experience, they want to be challenged. And here I am. Fortunately enough, I mean, the governments in Europe, and especially the European Union, is you know, giving us challenging targets.
Okay.
And here, when it comes to the and you know, challenging targets always drives innovation. We are saying. So, for instance, and to be very precise, in the automotive industry, a few years ago, the European Union set a target of CO2 emission limits of 120 grams per kilometer by 2015. Okay. Nowadays, we are at 135 in average. 34, I'm sorry. 34 in average. And we came from 164. So we did a major progression, and I'm pretty sure that we will make it by 2015. But the European Union already set the target for 2020. 95 grams per kilometer. So, you know, our engineers are already, you know,
thinking ahead,
brainstorming about how can we reach that. So, and I think this is a major driver for human beings set challenging targets. This would be a recommendation for, you know, all the countries around the world.
At the beginning of the millennium, or just at the end of the last century, when people say green, it always costs us more.
Yes.
Organic food costs us more right up until now. Right. If I look at hybrid vehicles, if the government doesn't interfere and, you know, doesn't put tax, it will be much more expensive than ordinary cars. So how do you look to change that? Because I agree with you that when you set more difficult and higher targets, almost impossible sometimes, is when the human creativity goes higher and higher. But maybe the next immediate challenge is, if we can bring down the cost, especially in Asia, where a lot of disposable income goes to housing and also mobility. So maybe that can help change that much more in the fight to be sustainable.
No, I mean, technology, latest technology has a value if it's accessible to the masses. Otherwise, there is no value. And at a price which, you know, the population can afford. And this is all about TSI. What we are saying is, maybe you buy it for a slight premium, but the advantages are huge. So, for instance, recently, you know, there was a price increase in fuel in Malaysia, right? So, with a simple calculation, with a fuel-efficient car from Volkswagen, you overcome this price increase immediately. You know, because the fuel efficiency, I think the price increase was somewhere around 20 cents or 10%.
Agreed.
But our fuel efficiency compared to, you know, a technology from 5-10 years ago, it's at least 17 to 20%. So you immediately have a return of your investment. And not to talk about the residual value of our cars, not to talk about the fact, and I think here we talk again to the young generations, but to the population as a whole, our cars can be are recyclable by up to 95%. So there is a full concept behind, of course, which I think it's part of the whole product you buy. You don't simply buy a car, you buy a philosophy.
So what we're saying is, from the Volkswagen example, sustainability is profit, because otherwise, the whole concept, engineering and otherwise, the consumers just won't buy it.
No, just want to buy it. But we see it nowadays in the electric vehicle. We are sure that sooner or later electric vehicles will have and will get their competitive pricing.
Okay.
Today it's not the case. But this is like a phasing in technology. It's always like this. First the technology is made accessible to few onlys, and then with economies of scales and with further innovation, the technologies are available for
like
everybody.
computers and phones before.
Perfect, yeah. There is plenty of examples. So, and we firmly believe that this will be the way. But in the end, is the customer to decide what the usage of the product the customer is making.
Yes. Okay.
So we have a technology for high mileage, which is TDI, for instance, and TSI. We have a technology for just commuting from office to home every day, few kilometers, which is electric vehicle. So what we are saying is, consumer, look at the footprint you leave with your behavior, and then choose the technology accordingly.
Yes. Especially so in Asia, when you get trapped in jams, even in downtown KL for more than 1 hour. It's not just about mobility. What kind of system, information, global reach that you put in the car will greatly influence.
But we have a solution for that already today, because the moment our cars stop, you have a so-called stop-start system.
Okay.
So the car totally shuts down.
Cool.
And
yes.
And then it recovers.
So I have to go for the last commercial break, but once we are back, we want to pry a bit of a look into the future of Volkswagen from Dr. Whatever is not secret that can be shared, because it's always nice. And I would like to take and quote on Professor Hubert Gazen before, that we have to imagine, because otherwise there's a lot of too much pessimism looking at bad statistics of problems around the world. So what good hope is Volkswagen bringing to us? Because if I look at it, even down south in Singapore, and 2 years ago I went there in partnership with the EU Scientific Committee, we look at how Singapore has managed to bring the Technical University of Munich, for example, to partner with National University of Singapore to look at urban mobility, concept vehicle. And they're looking at 100-kilometer radius per day of traveling. And they're not just building a car, they call it vehicle because it will come with automatic charging places built also into the ecosystem of that city state. So no longer it's just about producing a vehicle that transports you. Straight away it's incorporating about where to charge, what kind of energy, and also a public service at that. So where would the future be in the whole concept of Volkswagen looking forward? If we can pry certain things away from you in the crystal ball, that we'll discuss after this short break. You are still watching a special recording on Starline of World Marketing Summit Malaysia 2013. I'm still here with Dr. Zeno, and I've talked about the Singapore vision for the future, where they're going to produce their own mobility vehicle, they call it, where it will already be on electricity as power. And now they're building not just R&D into that kind of powertrain for the car, and they're looking at maybe reducing the cost of batteries, which is one of the single largest costs. But also, if I link that to looking into the future, and Volkswagen is asking us all over the world to go green by thinking blue, because if you're in space looking down at the Earth, you see blue.
Blue, yes.
And that's a very important point. So if you can share with us some vision into the future, because it might not just be about a vehicle. It'll be about lifestyle. It'll be about the infrastructure built in all together. Doctor.
You are fully right. So we, to put your question into one single word, it's we think the future is about mobility, independently from, you know, the mean of transportation. There is a big future. So what we see is, apart from the different new technology, call it fuel cell, call it electric vehicle, plug-in hybrid, this is already a reality today.
Yes.
Of course, we will further, the industry will further come to further reduce prices for electric vehicles, to extend the range of electric vehicles and all this kind of stuff. But we are talking about cars, as you say. So, but in the future, more and more, and here, you know, also the politicians and many other stakeholders are, you know, challenged. It's about integrating in an efficient way the different means of transportation. Just to give you an example, so 2 years ago, I went for holidays. I drove there with my car, but then I didn't touch my car for 2 weeks. Because in that area there was such a nice possibility to commute by a bicycle, short distances, by trains, longer distances, by buses in remote areas. So I didn't need to rely on my car. But I didn't want to, you know, have the individual approach to my, you know, holiday planning when it comes to go there. But there in the area, I didn't need to have a car. So we are saying, you know, let's all sit together and see how we can better integrate, because there is still a lot of, you know, efficiency to be created. And when Professor Hubert was talking about the future of the cities, I think this plays a major role. Of course, it can be implemented right from the beginning in those cities which are greenfield operations, in existing cities, and we see that also in Kuala Lumpur it's a challenging task.
More and more consumers are from Asia, be it for mobile phones or whatever else. And how would the Asian needs, and because culture is a very important part, we didn't get to discuss that in the panel because time was short, but science, technology can only bring you to a level. Acceptance, social impact will have to be rationalized through culture. And you have been in Asia and Southeast Asia, you've seen how, you know, we might share the same taste for a GTI, but how we use it and what it means to us might be very different from other parts of the world. So how would the needs, the creativity, the culture of Asia be filtered back to the brain and the think tank and the nexus of Volkswagen, for example, going into the future?
Yeah, you know, our operations in Asia and especially in China are huge and play a very important role. So, you know, we analyze the consumer behavior of the Asians, of course, in a very deep way. But I think when it comes to buying cars, when it comes to mobility, emotions play a major role.
Agree.
And we see that especially in these fast developing countries, such as, you know, Malaysia is already developed, but such as China, such as Thailand, Indonesia, and so on and so on. So, you know, to be able to afford latest technology, nicely designed cars, to finally rely on individual mobility, I think we should not deny this to the generations. So what we can influence is that they can do it in a sustainable way, or in a way which harms our nature, our ecological system, ecosystem, with the less impact possible.
I cannot let you go if I don't ask you this question, because I'm a proud user and owner of a 1985 locally produced car called Proton.
Oh, nice.
And Proton Saga is the name of the brand. So a lot of people that owns Proton were really excited when they heard about the potential transfer of technology partnership, leveraging between Proton and Volkswagen, for example. You being here could understand that. So would partnership be one of the key ways?
I mean, we are a partner to DAB HiCom, right? and we are a proud partner of DRB HiCom. What we will make available to the Malaysian customer pretty soon is a locally built Polo sedan, which comes as a very, very special price, and which will make possible to the Malaysian customers to finally drive, a German technology car also in Malaysia.
Yes, thank you very much. I think we have to read between the lines there. Whether or not my Saga would be the new generation looking like a GTI, that depends on whatever happens in the future. Thank you so much, Doctor, for making time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks to you for watching a special recording session on the sideline of the World Marketing Summit Malaysia 2013. And remember, look at the 8 MDG goals and see where your role are in it, because marketing is playing a better role for social good. Thank you. We'll see you in another episode very, very soon. Goodbye. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.